Okay, so we've had a look at trickle charging, and this would be the preferred option. If that is at all possible, that is preferable to using jump leads. The T5 is particularly vulnerable to electrical spikes which can be generated when boost starting. So if it's at all possible to get an extension lead and a trickle charger to your van, that would be the preferred option. Alternatively, physically remove the batteries from the van, take the battery away, charge it up, bring it back, or get a new battery and insert that, which we'll come on to have a look at in a minute how we do that. And as you can see on my battery here, I put the date when it was fitted. My battery's 5 years old, so if that's gone flat now, chances are it's going to be beyond repair. So why take the risk of boost starting it? Buy yourself a new battery, which you're going to have to do anyway, and insert that, and that removes any risk. Components such as here, this is your ABS pump, which has got an ECU controller on it, probably £1,000 there if you fry that using a jump start technique. So this really is, on the T5 particularly, a technique of last resort, but if you are in that place and have to do it, first thing to ensure is that you open the car and lock it normally if possible, and make sure the key, crucially important, is out of the ignition. That then closes down most of the electrical circuits and minimises risk. We then have a set of jumper leads. The first thing to check is that the booster leads you've got are of the correct thickness for the vehicle you're trying to stop. Obviously in these situations it's often needs must and what you can get your hands on, but if you're carrying a set for yourself, make sure they're thick enough for the engine you're trying to jump start, or you can get them very hot and things can start to burn, which we want to avoid. The other thing to make sure, we're going to have to assemble a car, a donor car. And again, it will be often, it's a case of needs must if you're wild camping, but you need a car with a similar capacity battery. So on your battery you'll have some figures, CCA, cold cranking amperage, and for T5 vans sort of a minimum of around 700. This particular battery is a little bit bigger, it's got 780. You're looking for a vehicle that's got a similar battery cold cranking amperage, or in simple terms, if you've got a heavy diesel van, you want a heavy diesel car to use as your donor car. You then want to position that car again somewhere, look at where the location of the battery is in the van and then where it is in the car, and so either as we've done here side by side, so the jumper leads will reach between the two vehicles, or and front to front bumper to front bumper. Just ensure the handbrake firmly on in both situations if you're walking between two cars parked closely together. And so again, before bundling into this, it's important we do it for safety reasons in a correct sequence, and follow safety guidance. So just familiarize yourself with your vehicle before you start. Just have a quick reference to the T5 Haynes manual. First thing you need to be identifying is the positive terminal of your battery. So this will normally be on the right hand side, but what you're looking for is the positive mark there, so the plus sign, and ensuring that it's not the negative one. So it's the positive we're looking for. And then, as it says here in the Haynes manual, it recommends that you don't connect the to the negative terminal of the battery on your van, and it recommends the engine lift point, which will vary on the engine type. But so if we just have a look in this van as an example, so this is the 1.9 diesel version. If you look as an identifying reference, we've got the orange dipstick here. Just below that we have this little metal loop which is designed for lifting the engine out. So that would be one option. It's quite easily identifiable because it's close to the dipstick, so there it is, and you could clip to that with your negative lead. That one is a little bit close to the alternator, so if we move just along to the other end of the engine, you will also find another engine loop, hoisting loop, and that's a solid metal component which would make a great earthing point. The other thing just to be aware of when we're connecting here, and the van's not running at the moment, but we have two electric fans just in this area, So be very, very careful that you route any cables away from those fans, which could start spinning at any time, and clearly watch your fingers, keep them well away, particularly when we start the engine and it's running. Okay, so the sequence in which we connect the booster leads is really important. So the first thing, as we've said, we're at the donor vehicle, so the van T5 with the flat battery. We've identified the positive terminal, and we're now going to connect the red jumper lead to that. A little bit awkward, but get it in there, and then make sure that these are plastic handles, but make sure if yours are metal that nothing is touching the metal bodywork around it. So you want to make sure it's really clear of any other bodywork, and also be very aware where the other ends of your leads are. Make sure they're not touching each other or touching any metal bodywork of the car. We're now going to move over, having connected that one, to our donor vehicle. So we're taking the other end of the booster lead. The thing we have to do is identify how to gain access to the positive terminal. So we've just connected the positive terminal on the van. In this particular Ford, you just have to remove this plastic cover. Then we connect the other end of the red booster lead to that post, and then the negative cable to that battery. And as you'll see on this particular set of leads, we then get a red LED to confirm we have made a contact. So once those two are connected, we then move back to the van. And we're now going to make our final connection of the negative lead. So as we've said, we've identified that engine lifting point, and then connect that to, again, making sure the leads and the handles are well clear of any fans in this area. Okay, so we're now in the car with a good battery, our help car, and we are just going to start that engine. And then we want to leave this running for a few minutes, get some charge in. If you can, just gently rev the engine. The quicker the engine's revving and the alternator's going round, the more charge is going in. But we then leave this car running, and we're now going to move over to the van with the flat battery. So we're leaving this engine running. Obviously check the car is secure, children around it, all those type of safety things, but leave it running, and then we're going to move across to the van. Okay, so we're now inside the van, and the engine's been running in the other car for some time. So now try and start the van, which is started. A little gentle rev. And we'll just leave that running for a minute or so, and then we can look at disconnecting the jump leads, and we're going to do that in a reverse of the sequence we applied them. So we're just going to have a look at that. Key thing to highlight now is, obviously, as you can hear, the engine is running, so components will be spinning around at speed. These fans, as we mentioned, can kick in at any time, so very carefully, keeping your hands well clear, remove the black lead. Okay, so we've actually switched both engines off, so you can hear on the video what we're talking about, but in this case both engines would still be running. So we've just disconnected the black lead from the van. You then come over to the donor car and very carefully unclip the black lead, keeping it well away from anything else, and then similarly you unclip the red lead, keeping that separate and well away from any car bodywork. We then return to the van, which, as I say, would still be running at this stage, and it's very important that it is still running, and that leaves us with just the red connection to carefully remove. So you now leave the van engine running, and if at all possible you would take the van now for an extended run of over half an hour or more, to give your alternator, which is this belt driven generator here, just give that time to run, as I say, for an extended run of over half an hour, quite a quick run, to get the battery fully charged. So we're going to look at, if you are unlucky and need to replace your battery or take it away to charge it, we're going to look at how you remove your battery on a T5 van. First thing to do is, if possible, unlock the van normally and open the door. Really important you open the door so it doesn't relock itself. and then just leave it for a couple of minutes to let the ECUs settle down. We then have to remove this panel to gain access to the battery. So there's the battery. And what you're going to need is a 10mm spanner. If we wanted to remove the battery totally to replace it, same principle as we said, you must unlock the van and open a door, let the ECUs settle down, give it a few minutes, and then you can look to undo it. First thing you do is crucially important you do it in this sequence first. You disconnect the negative lead first to avoid sparking. If you start working on this positive lead over here and you inadvertently touch your metal spanner between the positive and the metal bodywork of the van, you create a spark that can damage electrical components or create an explosion. So crucially important to remove the negative lead first, which we just do that. So it's a 10mm spanner. Okay, lift that out of the way. We can then move across now to the red lead and do that safely. We still try and avoid touching any metal components on the car, but you can release that and then gently lift those cables off. So the battery is now fully disconnected. Now on the T5 van you'll then need a 13mm socket preferably, and if you can see there's a bolt that holds a clip to the bottom lip of the battery. So got a 13mm socket we put on there. And then just undo that. Carefully lift that clip out. Okay, now we come to lifting the battery out. Batteries are often quite heavy. This one has a couple of carrying handles. So the first thing to ensure is that you are physically strong enough to do this. It's quite awkward. You want to keep the battery upright at all times to avoid sulfuric acid spilling out. If there's any sign of leakage, be very careful. Don't do it. Seek professional help. So we just wiggle it forward. So it's quite heavy, but you really don't want to drop this. So if you are in any way unsure of your own strength, get somebody to help you and lift it very, very carefully, trying to keep it as upright as possible. Now, if you're looking to replace your battery and you're using it as a camper van, the physical space in the T5 van is quite large, so you can put in larger capacity batteries, physical size, which have a longer, a higher amp hour rating. So we'll put some links to that in the description to explain some alternatives you may consider. But the first thing to notice, you've got a lip at the back of the tray, and so you will be inserting the battery first of all into that. So there's a lip around the bottom of most batteries that will go under there to hold it. So what we're going to do is just make sure the leads are out of the way and then carefully lift our battery back in. So moving the leads out of the way, make sure we don't pinch anything, locating it, as we said, under that back lip. We then have the grip plate. That locates there. Start it off finger tight to begin with, before tightening that up fully with your socket. And then we can connect the two terminals in a reverse of the way we did it first. So we put the positive lead on first, make sure that's firmly pushed down, and tighten that up with a 10mm spanner, as we said before. So we're making every effort not to touch the metal bodywork of the van, but if we did, it wouldn't spark, whereas if we connected the negative lead, it would create a circuit and spark at this point. So we put the positive one on first, then the negative. As you probably heard there was a little electrical spark, a crack, that's quite normal, and tighten this up. And then, as we said, it's just crucial to remember to retighten this nut with your 13mm socket to make sure it's then fully secure and the battery can't move. And that is how you replace your battery.